following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the October 12th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I would ask that our Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Urha, lead us in a ceremonial opening. Mr. Urha.
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You got me there. First order of business this evening is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're at now item number 2 on our agenda, recognitions, reports, and presentations. We have several special guests. The special guests I'm going to recognize right now are our scouts. We have scouts from Troop 200 and working on their communication merit badge, and we have also scouts from 216. Would you stand and be recognized, please? And we also have a special delegation from Ireland here, from our sister city, County Meath. And I'll turn it over to our sister city liaison, Jack Smith, for these special guests.
Well, thank you, Mayor. As many of you know, Cary is very active in what we call our Sister Cities program. This is a program where you reach out to communities across the world and you develop relationships so we can promote understanding and promote goodwill and get to know each other. And all of that is to the good of our community. One of the goals of Sister City is that we promote at the lowest level, at the citizen level, relationships and understanding. So we've had over the years many families come over. We've had many students come over. And this time we have something unique. Several years ago, we met a lot of the business folks from our sister city, and they've developed a great relationship with our Cary Chamber of Commerce. And from that relationship, we have this time not the kids and not the families, but we have a delegation of business folks that have come over to join us and to join our Cary Chamber. So what I would like to do right now is just have them all stand, and let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. We've got a full couple of days with them. They have been touring. They have been looking at how we do planning here in Cary. They have been looking at some of our developments. They just came from a chamber function called the Business After Hours, and they got to meet more of our business community. And, I want to personally thank each and every one of you. If I tried to pronounce your names and tried to do that in Gaelic, they would run me out of town. I've tried that once before, so we're not going to do that. But I want to thank you all on behalf of the town of Cary for being here, and we look forward to the next couple of days hosting you and being part of some great activities and great events. One more time, let's thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next item is to recognize Cary Band Day and the Cary Band Day proclamation. And at this time, I'll invite Councilmember George to the podium.
And I'd like to invite our guests from representing the Cary Band to come to the podium with me for the proclamation. I had a green tie to wear for two reasons, the Irish and for the Cary Band tonight. Did it for two reasons. This just happens to have been going on since the year I was born, since 1958. That you can figure out how old I am. But we're great to welcome you tonight, and I do want you to get a chance to introduce and who's up here in just a minute when I make the proclamation. But I'd like to recognize November 4th, 2017, as the 59th, here's my age, Cary Band Day. Whereas the Cary Band Day, the Cary High School Band has proven its musical and marching abilities throughout the years by its continuing achievements of both national and regional recognition for its accomplishments. Whereas members of the Cary High School Band have brought much honor to the town of Cary and its citizens while also maintaining high scholastic aptitudes. Whereas music plays an increasingly important role in our world today, it is the language of all people and of one of the greatest forces in creating peace and harmony. Whereas in 2011, the Cary High School Band was named Grand Champion of the Cleveland High School competition, the Clinton High School Band Day, and was a Bands of America Grand National semifinalist, placing them in the top 30 bands competing at nationals that year. Whereas the band has also been a Bands of America regional finalist 5 straight years, as well as Bands of America Grand National semifinalist in 2011 and again in 2014. The 2016 band was the grand champion of the Cleveland from across the nation critic and competition, as well as the Union Pines Viking Classic, winning every caption. Finally, the band was proud to represent the Cary High School and the town of Cary in the 90th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, having been selected out of 150 other bands. Now, therefore, I, Ken George, member of the Town Council and former member of the Cary High School Marching Band, on behalf of Harold Weinbrett, Jr., Mayor of the town of Cary, North Carolina, and on behalf of the Town Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 4th as the 59th Cary Band Day and urge all citizens of Cary and the surrounding areas to join together in honoring and proclaiming this long-standing Cary tradition, proclaimed this 12th day of October, 2017. Congratulations.
Thank you, as always. I would like to introduce real quick, this is Sandra Williams, who is the chairperson for our Cary Band Day, which she has hosted for how many years now? 29 years. That means that she started doing this when I started teaching, so she's been there, and I wasn't always at Cary, but I've been there since 2000, but ever since we've been there, she's been running Cary Band Day. These are our 3 drum majors, fresh off the practice field. So this is Nola Osagi and Linnea Hollander and Madeline Falscraft. And they are great examples of exactly what the proclamation describes, students that work really hard, strive academically, and represent us all really well. And we are super proud to host Cary Band Day again. We invite all of you out. We're praying for great weather, as always. We would like it maybe a little bit cooler than, than it has been lately. This week has certainly been miserable. But it's just a wonderful day. We have a new addition. You can come watch some bands go across the street to Outback.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, man, so that's right there, and all of our parents are panicking about parking and stuff right now. But we have 36 bands registered to come. UNC Chapel Hill's marching band is coming in. They're the exhibition band this year, so it'll be a treat for everybody. We appreciate the town's support and hope that you can make it.
And Mr. Minnick, I got to tell you, I love going to the competition Cary Band Day, and Ms. Williams takes care of me every time I go, and we have a good time and give out awards, and it's one of my highlights of the year. So I look forward to seeing you and your band in exhibition. Saw you in competition earlier this year, but I look forward to seeing you in exhibition and seeing all the other bands. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Matt. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Stiegel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I want to let council, staff, and our citizens know that Cary is involved in the Triangle Region's efforts to recruit Amazon to our area. Cary Chamber Vice President Kyle Greer is working closely with our own Atlanta High to spearhead our participation, which at this point is focused on getting the region on the company's short list. Cary is part of the region's RFP response, and a regional website and social media campaign have been launched. Anyone who is interested in helping or learning more should look for the phrase Triangle Delivers HQ2. On another topic, I want to let the council know that your efforts on Imagine Cary are continuing to be celebrated. At the North Carolina Planning Association Annual Conference, the Imagine Cary Community Plan was recognized with the Marvin Collins 2017 Outstanding Planning Award for comprehensive planning in a large community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stiegel. We'll now move to the third item on the agenda, Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. And if you'd like to speak, I'd ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the printed agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. And we do have a public hearing tonight at Kildare Farm and Penny Road. So if you would wait, you could speak on that at that public hearing. But this is anything but that. You can talk about anything else but that. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced. There's a green light. When it turns to a yellow light, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. When it turns to a red light, that means your time is expired. And at that point, I'm going to interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. We ask that if you're here on behalf of a group, please have a spokesperson for that group to reduce repetitive comments. That would help everybody. It'd help us listen better and also help the meeting be more efficient. If you have any handouts you would like us to see, please hand them to the town clerk. I appreciate everyone in the audience understanding that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from the meeting. So I'm going to call at this time the first speaker of Public Speaks Out to the podium. And if you would like to speak after the speaker, I would ask that you wait in the steps to my right. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I would invite the first speaker forward. Anyone to speak for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out. The next thing we have on our agenda is the consent agenda. And for the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please understand that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes. We have 17A09 Marcia A. Coleman annexation. We have 2017 utility reimbursement contracts update and annual reimbursements. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. We do have one public hearing tonight. Same rules apply for public hearings that applied for Public Speaks Out, with one exception. Instead of 3 minutes to speak, you now have 5 minutes to speak. Our one and only public hearing is 17 REZ 11, Kildare Farm Road and Penny Road assemblage rezoning. Katie Dry will introduce this item. Council will not take action tonight on this rezoning. Instead, it's going to be referred to an advisory board called the Planning and Zoning Board. They will review the item and make a recommendation to council, and it will come back to us in several months. And at that time, we will make a decision. And so at this time, I would ask that Ms. Dry present this item.
Good evening, Council. For your consideration is a request to rezone 3.3 acres located at 3000, 3002, 10617 Kildare Farm Road, and 10617 and 10621 Penny Road. The site's highlighted here in yellow. It's located at the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Kildare Farm Road and Penny Road. The property at the corner is improved with an existing gas station, and the other 3 lots are vacant. The existing gas station has 4 fueling positions with a 2,400 square foot building. It's located on a parcel that's 0.88 acres. The total assemblage of property for this site is 3.3 acres. The existing zoning for the site is general commercial for the site at the corner where the existing gas station is located, and residential 40 for the other 3 properties. The site's also located in the Mixed-Use Overlay District and the Swift Creek Watershed Protection Overlay District. The site's within the new suburban area of the Swift Creek, which limits impervious area, surface area to a maximum of 30%. The applicant's proposing to rezone all 4 properties to general commercial conditional use with associated conditions. These conditions include limiting the use to a convenience store and vehicle filling station, prohibiting drive-throughs and car washes, limiting the number of fueling positions to a maximum of 20, specifying the canopy will be no closer than 150 feet to the intersection, setting a maximum building size of 5,500 square feet heated area, limiting the hours of operation to between 6 a.m. and 12 a.m., providing additional stormwater control measures, and setting a 35-foot Type A buffer on the western property boundary and a 10-foot Type B buffer on the southern property boundary. Before we start the analysis of the site under the Imagine Cary Community Plan, we'd like to briefly share the planning and zoning history that applies for the site. In 1996, the Cary Land Use Plan designated activity areas within the town. In this area, which included all 4 quadrants of the Penny Road and Kildare Farm Road intersection, was designated as being part of a neighborhood activity center. In January 2017, with the adoption of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, the future land use plan's vision has changed significantly for this area. The plan no longer recommends having a mixed-use node at this location. The site's now in what's called the suburban neighborhood designation of the plan's growth framework map. So that was the planning history. Next, I'd like to briefly cover the zoning history for the site. The site was annexed into the town in 2003 and given a base zoning of general commercial for the site where the gas station was located and residential 40 for the other 3 properties. In July 2003, one of the implementation items for the land use plan at that time was to apply a mixed-use overlay district around activity centers within the town, this area being one of them. With the adoption of the Cary Community Plan, in January of 2017, there were LDO amendments, which indicates that for this site, it no longer has the option of requesting an MXD zoning with a preliminary development plan because it's no longer in an activity center. So because of this change, the rezoning request is for a conditional use zoning district and does not include a preliminary development plan. So now that we've briefly addressed the planning and zoning history, this brings us to a preliminary analysis of the site under the Imagine Cary Community Plan. The aspects for evaluation from the plan include looking at the plan's policies and also the site's future growth framework map designation, which is in the suburban neighborhood category. You can see the site's located clearly at the edge of the suburban neighborhood, being at the intersection of Penny Road and Kildare Farm Road. Also, the area to the north of Penny Road is designated as a commercial center. Suburban neighborhoods should serve as a transitional zone to rural and county development, consists primarily of large and small lot single-family development. The plan does say that a limited amount of non-residential uses, including neighborhood commercial uses, can be appropriate along the edges of residential areas. This rezoning is proposing to replace a neighborhood-scale gas station with a much larger station. This is also, though, proposing to redevelop an existing aging business, which is consistent with work policies from the work chapter of the Cary Community Plan. It should also be noted that the site is clearly on the edge of the suburban neighborhood area, being that it's at the intersection of two major thoroughfares. So the preliminary analysis suggests that a non-residential use and redevelopment of an aging business may be appropriate at this location. Conformity of this non-residential use within the suburban neighborhood depends on the specific use, the intensity, the compatibility, and transitions that are being proposed. So with these next few slides, we'd like to share some of the evaluation criteria to look at some of this. So for the intensity of a gas station, we look at that based on the number of fueling positions which are being proposed. A fueling position is defined as the maximum number of vehicles that can be fueled simultaneously at a service station. In this example here, just to illustrate what a fueling position is, you can see 3 pumps in this picture. There are 2 vehicles can be served at each pump. So in this example, we have 6 fueling positions that are visible. So again, you can fuel 2 cars at each pump, so a total of 6 fueling positions. So again, the applicant's proposing 20 fueling positions for this particular site. So to provide some context on number of fueling positions, we have included a few examples from the Cary and Raleigh area. This is an example of a gas station in Cary. It has 8 fueling positions, so you can see 4 pumps in this picture. It can fuel a total of 8 cars at one time, so 8 fueling positions. It's on 1.18 acres. In this picture, we can see there are 6 pumps for a total of 12 fueling positions on 1.25 acres. Here's another example of a gas station that has 14 fueling positions on 1.01 acres. We've got one with 20 fueling positions, 1.25 acres. Here's another example. This is in Raleigh of one with 24 fueling positions on 1.25 acres. So this concludes the evaluation of the intensity. We also look at evaluation of transitions. So for this site, a landscape buffer is not required because this site and the neighboring properties are located within a mixed-use overlay district. The boundaries for the mixed-use overlay district are located here to the west. So the property which is adjacent as well as the property to the south are both within that mixed-use overlay district. Applicants may offer a condition to establish a buffer. For this site, the applicant is proposing a 35-foot type A buffer on the western property line, along here, and a 10-foot type B buffer along the southern property line. The site will be required to have a 30-foot streetscape per the requirements of the Land Development Ordinance along both Penny Road and Kildare Farm Road. Another point of analysis includes a condition proposed by the applicant regarding stormwater, which indicates that in addition to meeting all the town of Cary requirements, on-site stormwater control measures shall reduce runoff rates at the point of interest as shown in Exhibit A for the 1, 2, 5, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events by at least 25%. So this picture that you see here is Exhibit A. It shows the point of interest, and these blue lines indicate the direction of the water flow at which they will be capturing and doing additional stormwater control measures. So this completes the preliminary analysis of the conditions with regard to intensity, compatibility, and transitions. The next series of slides will finish the analysis of the site under the Imagine Cary Community Plan. So according to the Town of Cary GIS maps, the site is not impacted by stream buffers. However, field determination of that will be officially determined at the time of development plan review. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Facilities Master Plan, which is in the Engage chapter of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, shows a street side trail along Penny Road on the northern portion of the property. According to the Move chapter of the plan, both Penny Road and Kildare Farm Roads are thoroughfares. There are also future Go Cary routes along both of these roads. There was a traffic study completed for the site in accordance with the Town of Cary's Land Development Ordinance. The study was prepared by one of the town's on-call traffic engineering consultants. It evaluated a total of 10 intersections within 1 mile area of the site. The intersection improvement recommendations included improvements at the intersections of Kildare Farm Road and Penny Road, so right at this intersection here. Some of these improvements may be required as part of the development plan review, since some of them are along the property frontage for the site. There was also recommendations at the intersection of Kildare Farm Road and 1010 Road down in this area, specifically to include a westbound right turn lane along 1010 Road. Also at the intersection of Penny Road and Lock Highlands Drive, the recommendation was to construct a westbound right turn lane along Penny Road. The applicant's not offered to complete any of the off-site road improvements recommended from the traffic study. There was a neighborhood meeting held for the site in April of this year. There were questions and concerns from the neighbors regarding their proposal, specifically how large would the new gas station be, would there be a car wash, what the hours of operation would be, lighting requirements from the town, questions about stormwater. And since that neighborhood meeting, the applicant did hold a follow-up neighborhood meeting and has met with some of the neighbors on their site and has offered conditions to reflect some of the concerns from the neighbors. And the conditions that they've offered are reflected in the public hearing tonight. So properties within 800 feet of the subject site were notified of the public hearing. The property was posted in with public hearing signs, and legal ads were placed in accordance with the Town of Cary Land Development Ordinance. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here to share the rezoning request, and following that, staff will be available for questions. Thank you.
Ms. Try. At this time, I would invite the applicant forward.
Good evening. I'm Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group, and I have the pleasure of representing the applicant for this project. I'm proud to be a part of it because I believe that this project is a win for both the developer and the community. It's also an example of how the process should work. When we submitted this application in February, we felt confident that we would be able to develop the land for our needs pursuant to the Cary LDO if we could just rezone. And then we had our neighborhood meeting. Several area residents attended and voiced their concerns, which is not uncommon, but it was clear that there was something else going on here, so we decided to have a second neighborhood meeting so that we could really hear their concerns and vet them. And after that second neighborhood meeting, we had several more meetings with a few of the area residents, and we also went back to the site and studied it, and we're very glad that we did. What we discovered is that the neighbors who were concerned with stormwater were exactly right. Today, they experience flooding due to the poor stormwater controls implemented, I believe, when the Hemlock Plaza shopping center was built. Now, generally, the LDO requires new development not to increase runoff more than 10% for up to the 10-year storm. Well, we recognize that we actually had an opportunity to improve the stormwater situation in this area. So we've offered a condition that we will reduce by at least 25% the runoff rates for the 1, 2, 5, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. This is very significant. And it's a condition that we were very happy to add once we had an opportunity to hear the neighbors' concerns, work with them, study the area, and consider the options. Now, we had our first neighborhood meeting, the one that's hosted by the Town of Cary. We had that one in April. It is now October, and we are having our initial public hearing. And that's because we took the time to meet with the neighbors and really listen to their concerns and try to address them. We didn't just pay them lip service and say, yeah, we hear you. We actually offered solutions, and you can see that reflected in some of the conditions that we've offered. It's my understanding that we have been responsive to every concern that the neighbors have raised, except perhaps for the use itself, which frankly is the only reason we're here. It's not something that we would be able to compromise on. But we've eliminated drive-throughs, we've eliminated car washes, we've limited the business hours, we've provided buffers where none otherwise would be required, and we've done all this to try to address their concerns in an attempt to be a good neighbor. Now, I want to touch on a rather obvious point. There is already a gas station at this location. So whether we rezone or not, there will be a gas station at this location. What the rezoning allows us to do is to give this dated facility a facelift. We can improve access to and from the site. We can more effectively serve the customers. And ultimately, we can remain competitive in the market. The existing facility was built over 30 years ago, and it could stand to be modernized. While this is not a rezoning condition, I think it's important to know that the plan here is for a complete teardown. And so what that means is that the tanks that have been buried underground for 30 years, or more than 30 years, they're going to be replaced with brand new state-of-the-art instruments. And I think that's an important thing to consider. And while the rezoning will allow us to do all this great stuff at our facility, it also is going to help the community, significantly help the community, particularly by helping to reduce some of the stormwater issues that they experience today. In my eyes, this is a win-win project, and I hope you'll agree. I want to thank staff for their presentation. I want to thank you all for your time and consideration. We have some of the consultants that have worked on the project here with us tonight to try to answer any of your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So now's the time for public hearing 17 REZ 11, and I would invite our first speaker forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Deborah Pugliafico. I live at 105 Fox Squirrel Court in Westchester Woods. I am an abutter of the property. And I want to thank everyone for your willingness to listen to our concerns and address our proposed conditions. I want it to be known that we are not opposed to an upgrade to the area at all. And most of the statements that were just made from the applicant are correct. However, in reviewing the document that was sent to all of us, there are a few concerns that we would like to bring to your attention, as well as some conditions that I felt we agreed upon when we met with the applicant during those subsequent meetings. As a group, we feel that the traffic study did not properly address one important issue, and that there are 2 schools in the area and the traffic pattern impact that it will have. We were told that there are going to be 2 permanent road dividers placed on Penny Road and Kildare Farm Road, and they will force traffic flows in directions that will eliminate potential customers from utilizing their gas station because of the inconvenience they present in regards to the direction of travel. It will also negatively impact the businesses currently operating in the old Food Lion Plaza, many of which we have all supported for years and years, and we feel very strongly that whatever happens, we don't want negative impact on those long-standing neighborhood businesses. But most importantly, putting those dividers in the road, we feel is going to create dangers to children waiting at bus stops. The entrance to my development, Westchester Woods and Windsor Oaks, is now going to become a prime real estate for U-turns. These are bus stops. The speed and density of traffic going up Kildare Farm towards Penny Road at the bus stop hour is intense. Those are pictures of Exhibit A. The concerns of drivers making a U-turn onto Forest Run while these kids are waiting at a bus stop and somebody comes barreling down Kildare Farm Road is a recipe for disaster. Another item that we feel very strongly about is our concern towards the outward aesthetics of the building. The breeze-through property we were told this location would emulate is not at all what we feel pleasing, if you look at the pictures, Exhibit B, nor do we feel within acceptable of the guidelines of the town of Cary. We have not been shown any rendering of this potential property as planned, and how can we agree on something if we don't know what it's going to look like, and we're going to have to look at it all the time. Some things that we brought to your attention is there's a breeze-through on Cary Parkway and High House that we feel is aesthetically pleasing, and then some of the other ones in the area as well. Those are Exhibits C and D. Another item is we were told there would be no food cooked on site, as is the case with other breezeways. That is not on the list of conditions, and we were adamant about that because of the smells, the garbage, and the animals that it may attract. Lastly, one of our concerns is the size of the store. We let it be known numerous times that a 5,500 square foot store, which is more than double of what is currently there, was not acceptable to us. And we feel the surrounding area and the traffic flow has no need for a merchant of that size. When we asked why the need for a store this size, the first reason we were given was so we can carry more varieties of beer. Not the answer that we want to hear for a neighborhood convenience store. There are 2 grocery stores up the street within a mile that can more than fill that beer variety need of anybody. We prefer that the property not become a hangout for alcohol consumption because they have a big, huge variety of beer. I'd like to end what I have to say by quoting one of the town council members in regards to a rezoning. They said, the question we must answer in regards to rezoning is the use and density proposed an appropriate use of the land and compatible with the surrounding community? We feel that the project as it's currently being presented is not, and we hope you will consider our concerns and desires when moving forward. We're already looking at an abandoned gas station at the corner of Penny and 1010, not even a mile away. As much as a pretty well unused strip mall right across the street. And we don't want a business going in that's too large to then become another piece of abandoned property in our area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. To your left.
Okay. My name is George Burrell. I'm one of the residents of this area, but I am also Professor Emeritus of Property Development, Investment and Management from one of the better universities in Great Britain. And better is used as a British understatement. Rather than begin at the beginning, I will give you first my overall conclusion on this proposed development. A very large increase on a small site in the middle of an area of existing considerable availability of gas stations. If the proposed project is put in place, it will likely be underutilised. That underutilisation will open spaces for undesirable and nefarious activities to come to take place in our neighbourhood, and we do not like that. From that initial negative aspect in the activities within our town, it can spread. And it's often very difficult to stop a negative evolution as it is flowing. I will now turn to the same sequence of the comments that I've handed out to you. Current state and use of the site. It is very little used and is mostly considerably empty. Surrounding competition. Within 2 miles of this site, 68 vehicles can be gassed up simultaneously. Within 5.1 miles of this site, 110 vehicles can be gassed up simultaneously. And these people are proposing to raise the quantity at this gas station from 4 to 20. This puts serious questions on the economic viability of this proposal. There are also numerous supermarkets of national names and many other stores well within 2, 3, 4 miles of this location. They are extremely competitive in pricing and supplying what people need, and this will provide vast competition for an isolated little station like this. Given this outline, the best thing for an owner, from a real estate developer's point of view, the best thing to do is to gain greater standing for your properties by increasing the value of your properties from residential to commercial. And once you have done that, sell it to somebody else. But that would leave the new buyer facing the same problems as the existing seller. And behind this are all us people living in the neighbourhood suffering from what I have just said were my overall findings. They are proposing to increase from 4 to 20 gas pumps, 5 times what is here at the moment, which are underutilised at present. The shop increasing from 2,300 square feet, they said 2,004, but that is the outside dimensions of the building, not the gross rentable space or the net rentable space. 2,300 to 5,500 is 1.5 times the size increase when you've got all these other shops around. The gas and shop will not change the traffic flows and patterns around this site. A tight corner lot, difficult, expensive to develop. Virtually only traffic eastbound on Perry and southbound on Kildare have access to this. It's easier just to keep driving straight on to the next set of traffic lights and get your gas there. Effect on the local neighbourhood from the proposal. The gas station would create, as I said, a large...
I'm so sorry. I have to interrupt you. Your time has expired. You're allowed 5 minutes for your comments.
I didn't see a light coming on.
It's going off.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't...
It's okay. I just have to stop you.
Okay.
But we do have your comments, and I do appreciate that.
Yes, I would appreciate if you would all read what I've written, because I took a great deal of time and attention to provide that, and I'm briefly trying to summarize it here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Honourable Mayor and Town Council. My name is Robert Sills, and I'm one of the residents that live very close to the proposed gas station. On behalf of our neighbourhood partners, we thank the Planning Department of the Town of Cary for the discussions over the past year on the proposed zoning conditions for the vehicle filling station and convenience store at the intersection of Kildare Farm Road and Penny Road. In conjunction with the points raised by our neighbours, there are 3 additional concerns that we request to be included in the proposed zoning conditions. The first point of concern is a safety issue. We request that a 7-foot brick wall or appropriate fencing be placed extending from Penny Road to Kildare Farm Road behind the gas station, and that can serve as a barrier between the gas station and the residencies that are close to the gas station, including the Windsor Oaks residence located on East Bridgeford Drive. This will prevent users of the convenience store and gas station from trespassing and prevent the use of areas behind the gas station for unintended purposes. The second point of concern is an environmental issue. We understand that the outside lights are governed by Cary ordinance. However, it is our wish that the lights which will be used outside of the gas station be of such that they do not cause illumination that adversely affects residences close to the gas station. In the event that the lights adversely impact residences around the gas station, we request that steps be taken so that the wattage used and the construction of the lamps be such that the illumination be centered on the gas station and that shields be put in place to deter illumination that extends to residences near to the gas station. The third issue of concern relates to the aesthetics of the gas stations, and one of my fellow neighbors mentioned this, but we really strongly feel about this, so I wanted to just reiterate her thoughts. We sincerely request that the gas station be representative of the houses in our neighborhoods, such as having a residential architectural style. That's very, very important to us. In addition, it is important to our residents that the landscaping includes shrubs and trees that complement our surrounding outstanding neighborhoods. Thank you very much for your time and for your consideration of our safety, lighting, and architectural requests. We appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is David Bernath, and I've been living at my current address at 10,700 East Bridgeford Drive for the last 28 years. On the map, it's probably one of the closest ones to the proposed changes. When we first built our home, I never had any water issues. However, that all changed when the Food Line Shopping Center, the Hemlock Plaza that's up there, was built on the north side of Penny Road a few years after we moved in. Eventually, the shopping center expanded when the CVS was also built on the corner, and our water problems increased. For the last 20-plus years, typically 1 to 3 times each year, I end up with a flooded crawl space, as the water will rise almost 2 feet up the side of my house. Several of my neighbors are also affected by this, as the amount of water flowing causes issues on their properties as well. We were initially in just Wake County, and I contacted them when the problems first started happening, which was basically the first big rain after the shopping center was built. They eventually came out, assessed the issue, and stated that the ditch needed to be widened and evened out. They did come out with equipment, they dug it out, added riprap, etc. I told them at the time that that was not going to fix the problem, as it was a simple issue of the fact that the amount of water that's attempting to fit through a single exit point, which was an undersized pipe under the road, but they did not agree. And so it has remained. I am told that these rain events, there are 5-year, 10-year, 25-year events, but they seem to occur every year, sometimes multiple times. So someone's definition definitely needs to change. When the city of Cary forcibly annexed our neighborhood, I talked with the people who were digging up the streets when they were putting the sewers in about trying to get a larger culvert put under the road, since they were digging the road up anyway, already under East Bridgeford Drive, but they didn't care. Because of these ongoing water issues, I have had foundation issues. The piers under my house have collapsed. I've had to have the house jacked up. Someone had to replace the piers, and they had to dig out the foundations by hand. The left front side of my house was also sinking, so I had to have that stabilized and the crumbling and cracked brick replaced. Most of the doors on that side of the house are still askew because of this. I have had French drains installed around the perimeter of the crawl space to enable it to drain out faster after it floods. Unfortunately, no matter how fast it happens, it still increases the overall moisture level under the house, which has had a net increase on problems like termites, mold, and mildew. My air handlers are also on that side of the house, and I have to turn the system off during any potential flood issues, events to prevent the damage. One of the three flood occurrences just from this past summer pushed the one air handler partly off its foundation. Tens of thousands of dollars I've had to pay out of my pocket because someone did not do their job in looking at the runoff in this direction from a commercial project at Hemlock Plaza many years ago. When I heard about this gas station expansion project, my first thought was, oh no, more concrete, more runoff downstream to me. Remarkably, and to my astonishment, the first person to actually care about my problems has been the breezeway owner, Jim Bosworth. He listened intently to my concerns and asked Lofty Smith, his engineer, to work with myself and my neighbors on the problem, and I want to thank him for his willingness to be a good neighbor. Lofty analyzed the issue and was in agreement that because of the topography, an extremely large area upstream from us is being funneled down and runs right between the houses. Because we have been unable to get anyone to widen the bottom of the funnel, in other words, replace the small 18-inch pipe that goes under the road and driveways, the only option available is to reduce what is going into the funnel. He has investigated the options and what steps can be taken with the retention pond to reduce the amount of runoff that will occur from that direction. I had hoped that some water could also be diverted to go down the Kildare Farm Road side, but I have been told that the city will not allow that. So my request to you is simple. Please ask your engineers as part of this work to work with the engineering staff at Withers Ravenel to investigate all of the possible options at reducing the current runoff as part of this project. For myself and all of my neighbors who have had to live with this issue for so long, it would be nice to finally have a light at the end of this wet tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Chris Mahalik, and I live at 10816 West Bridgeford. I would like to most of the points that I was going to address have already been made by my friends and neighbors, but I just want to expand on a couple of them. Most of us are not opposed to the expansion of the gas station. We pretty much agree that as it sits today, it's not economically viable. But there are conditions that we need that we want to make sure are part of this overall proposal. As Deborah said, we have not seen a rendering of the final project, so it's difficult for us to make an assessment with this one. As I've thought about all the different places in Cary, and I don't know every gas station, I could only think of one other gas station that actually abuts a residential lot directly. I'm sure there's others, but I couldn't think of one. But one of the things as we talk about this thing, you see on the neighborhoods, we're trying to be very rational about this thing. But there are a couple points, and as Dave said, I am very impressed the way the Breezeway people, Jim Lochte, they've come to help us. They've actually did try to be good neighbors, and we do appreciate that. A lot of our issues have to do with what was there prior and some of the town of Cary, processes and the way we have to do things. For example, the traffic study that was done. I read it. It was basically, to me, a check-the-box exercise. As Deborah said, it did not address Oak Grove. It did not address Penny Road School. It did not address really the fundamental core issues that we need to look at for this entire project. But this is part of the overall Cary thing. We've got to stop looking at just one piece of it and look at it all the way down. Look at it all the way down to Ederly Drive. Look at it all the way up to Oak Grove and both ways on Kildare. Is there something different that we can do that impacts everybody? The safety issue, as Robert mentioned, is something that can't be overstated. 7-foot barrier, something that's appropriate. The last thing I want is like kids getting out in the neighborhood at 11:50 and kind of walking through our neighborhood and seeing what they can do. Very simple. I think that's something we can live with. But what worries most of us are the unintended consequences associated with this particular project. As Dave said, when the Hemlock Plaza was built, that caused a lot of the problems to shuffle through our neighborhood. And at that time, we were not part of the town of Cary. When the town of Cary annexed us, none of those issues were addressed with us. It was just that, hey, that's the way it is. You kind of have to live with it. And that's kind of what we have here. We'd like the town of Cary to become more active in helping us manage those type of things. We don't do this for a living, none of us. All of us have regular jobs that we have to do, and we're all doing this at like 9 o'clock at night trying to come together to come to talk to you guys. We are simply not experts at this thing. But one of the things as I look at this thing, I come from a town up north, and the last thing I want to see is any kind of distressed type neighborhoods in the town of Cary. It seems like a far-off possibility now, but I mean in 10, 20 years, who's to know? One of the things I had from my councilman said, I want to ensure our new Cary community plan protects our neighborhoods from the impacts of infill development. That's what we're really talking about here. What are the unintended consequences that happen when we have that Hemlock Drive? When Hemlock Bluffs was built, they had a Food Lion there that was built for, and all of us, patronized it. When Mill Pond Village was built, they had a Lowe's there. That put the Food Lion out of business. When the Stone Bridge was built, that put the Lowe's out of business. Now that the Publix is now in Mill Pond Village, that put the Harris Teeter out of business. We have to look at all these domino effects, and we're simply not addressing them as a community. That's what we need to do. Quit looking at these projects as in isolation and look at that as a whole. So, having said that thing, I know you guys are a reasonable group. This is not a decision tonight, and I think this is a reasonable group that you're dealing with, and I think that we would all like to work with this one, especially the Cary people have been very nice. They've been reasonable. We expect reasonability in return. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And if the next speaker after this one would wait by the steps, that would really make this more efficient. I'd appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Sandy Jones. We live right beside the property. And I really just wanted to know if there was someone here that could explain a couple of things up here that I don't understand. First, what is a type B 10-foot buffer?
So this is your opportunity to speak, not question and answer. We'll be glad to have a staff member work with you and give you all the answers to all the questions.
There's just things, like I don't understand where all these medians are going to be located.
Someone will be glad to work with
you. Well, that's what I need. I can't say anything until I fully understand.
The town clerk would be glad to give you a connection with a staff member, contact information. Gosh, I'm struggling with that.
And they can come back.
And then you can come back.
They can go back during public speaks out.
So that's a good point. Even though this is a public hearing, you can come back any meeting and speak at Public Speaks Out. So once you have the information you'd like, you can come back and speak at any and all meetings if you'd like. Okay? Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for this public hearing? I said Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. I'd like to take the opportunity to go over a long list of items I wrote down, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues. I heard we don't know what this looks like several times. It's important to understand that this is a zoning, and what that means is our decision is about type of use, not what the use looks like, unfortunately. Unless the applicant wants to submit a rendering of what it looks like, we can't force them. We don't have that authority. All we can do is answer the question, is this a good type or not a good type? Same thing with no food. They have to submit that as a condition. We cannot force them to do that. The size of the store, I actually agree with that. One of my colleagues, Ms. Robinson, always says, I need a compelling reason to rezone. I need a compelling reason as this moves forward for the scope of this project. I'm not hearing it yet, so I'm hoping the applicant and others will give me a compelling reason why we should see something this size in this place. 7-foot brick wall condition. Again, unfortunately, we don't have authority to force them to do that. You can work with the applicant. Maybe they'll submit that condition. We don't have that authority. Light illuminations with shields, good point. I think our requirements, I'm looking at Ms. Dry, I think our requirements do require shields. They have wattage limits and all these things to direct light down so they don't go up. Is that correct? Yes, I'm getting a nod, yes. Facade, landscaping, that's all site plan issues. That comes after rezoning. We cannot enforce any of that at the rezoning. That would be at a later date. I know this process is frustrating if it's your first time. But those are authorities and state requirements that we have to live with. We are given the rules to work within, and these are the rules to work within. When you're talking about a rezoning, you're talking about type. Stormwater, 20-year shopping center. I know it's not going to make you feel better, but we have stormwater issues all over town. How did that happen? 10, 20, 30 years ago, we had no stormwater conditions or very little stormwater conditions. We have multiple millions of dollars worth of stormwater issues all over town. We are currently looking into all of these, and I'm going to look at my town manager and see if he nods yes.
Yes.
We are currently looking into all of these, including this one, hoping we'll have some information, not knowing if I'll have any solutions that are feasible, but hoping we'll have some information about stormwater issues, because it is very, very unfortunate to hear stories, and it kind of breaks my heart when I hear stories about people having to deal with foundation issues, flooding crawl spaces. It's horrible. I don't want that on my home, and I know they don't want it on their home. Forced annexation, just a little bit of history here. That was allowed up until 2002. Then the council first decided we don't want to do that anymore. And then the legislature said, you can't do that anymore. So there is no more forced annexation. Of course, if you were already forced into Cary, you're in Cary. So hopefully we can make you happy citizens by addressing some of the issues you mentioned. The idea of putting stores out of business, amen. I see that all the time. But again, we don't have authority to do that. We can't tell people what to build. We can only talk about the type of use. I sure do wish we could do that. 15 years ago, it was a drugstore on every corner, and now it seems like we have a grocery store on every corner. So I totally understand where you're coming from there, but unfortunately, we don't have authority to tell people what to build and what not to build. Those are my thoughts and my comments, and I'd like to open it up to my colleagues for their thoughts and their comments. This will go to the Planning and Zoning Board, and they're going to review this. And if the applicant makes any changes between tonight's public hearing and the review by the Planning and Zoning Board, then there will be a public hearing on those changes at the Planning and Zoning Board, where you can once again speak about the changes that have been made since this public hearing. So, comments?
Question for maybe better understanding. It seemed like this one, it's like caught in kind of the middle of maybe the new community plan and what used to be there, what's now there. I heard it was mixed use, but now it's not mixed use, and it was going to didn't have to provide a buffer, but now they're offering a buffer. Can you help me better understand that?
And it's probably talk about overlays.
Well,
because I kind of thought overlays went away, and I guess they're still here.
Right. So help me better understand that.
Sure. So when the Imagine Cary Community Plan was adopted, several areas that were designated as activity centers are no longer activity centers, this being one of them. In 2003, the town applied the mixed-use overlay district, which is a zoning district, on all of the activity area sites. So even though this area is no longer designated as an activity center, there is still a zoning overlay, which is this blue line here. The zoning overlay is in place and cannot be removed until a rezoning occurs townwide for all of these areas that are in areas that are no longer activity centers. So there would have to be a town-initiated rezoning to remove that overlay. And so until that happens, we've made a change to the ordinance where they no longer have to request the MXD zoning, but there's still some other legacy elements of the overlay that apply, the buffers being one of them.
Gotcha. Okay. It helps a little bit. I'll probably follow up a little bit more offline to maybe better understand that. I guess my comment would be I appreciate them offering a buffer when maybe they don't have to offer a buffer. Could the buffer be bigger? I think that's quite possible. A lot of the examples that you showed that, had 20 pumps, 24 pumps, or service station or bays or whatever, were on much smaller sites than 3.3 acres, I think this is. So I would like to better understand why that's the biggest buffer we could get on the site. I think some of the other concerns are reasonable, possibly pertaining to, obviously lighting, which I think you've addressed that as well. It's pretty easy for someone to ask for a brick wall around the back of somebody's site until you have to pay for that brick wall, but some type of screening, i.e. better buffer or fencing or something, might be a little more practical or financially feasible. But the look and feel one, I think, also kind of resonated with me, where with what these mega gas stations are starting to look like and things these days, I think that's a very reasonable concern that possibly the applicant could provide some assurances in some form of condition as this goes forward. I would applaud the applicant for actually pausing the process if they're hearing from residents' concerns about stormwater issues and not just doing what the code says they have to do, but actually looking to do more and better and possibly not necessarily fix the problem that they didn't create, but help make it better. I think we don't see that often from applicants, so anytime we do see an applicant that offers that, that's refreshing. So I guess those would be some of my concerns going forward. I appreciate your comments about businesses not putting business out of business, but at the same time, how many of us sitting in this room now order from Amazon?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
How many businesses is Amazon putting out of business? So it's, times change, the way people do business change, and the way people want to receive services and goods change. And I think businesses either have to adapt and change, or they will find themselves out of business. So anyways, those are some of my comments and concerns, and I kind of look forward to seeing how this moves through the process. We obviously have a very involved citizenry and residents that live around it. Please stay involved, communicate with the applicant. You obviously have an applicant that is very receptive to your issues and concerns, and I'm optimistic that maybe some more improvements can be made before this comes back.
Mr. Yerha?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on the first part of Mr. Francis' comments on the mixed-use overlay district. You mentioned the town-initiated rezoning. That's going to happen at some point, as far as we know. I mean, it doesn't have to if we don't vote for it, but it's intended to occur at some point. Had that occurred already, we would have general commercial without a mixed-use overlay next to residential. And right now, the applicant's offering this 35-foot type A buffer on the west. What would the western buffer be if we didn't have an overlay, if it was just general commercial versus residential?
So in that scenario, the buffer would be a 65-foot type A buffer when this particular use is being proposed next to an existing single family.
So we have 35-foot type A would be 65-foot.
It would be 65. Yes.
And on the south, offering a 10-foot type B, and that would be?
That would be 32 and a half feet because the site to the south is undeveloped, is vacant.
So also type B, though? Or would it be
I believe it would be type A. Yes, type A.
And type A is opaque, in case you're wondering.
Opaque. Yeah, so we have 10-foot type B instead of 32-and-a-half-foot type A. Now, technically, the applicant doesn't have to offer buffers here. So, I mean, he's offering something, so it's a good thing. But what we're imagining, and I'll use the word imagining because of Imagine Cary, what we're imagining, I guess, in the future is 65 feet and 32-and-a-half feet, not 35 and 10. So we are caught in the middle here. I just wanted to clarify that and let you realize the differences between the two scenarios.
Comments on this end?
That's a very good point. I agree with you, Mayor. I'm looking for why this is a compelling use, why we should take a site and enlarge it so much. It makes it easier to see the compelling use when you see a real need in the area, plus you see the applicant improving the conditions so much that it truly feels harmonious. Most people would say that a gas station next to residential isn't really a harmonious use. So, there has to be a lot of things. I think the stormwater treatment is a huge example of doing that, but there are other things that could be done. Anytime that somebody feels like they need a wall around the adjacent use, makes you feel nervous because that's their indication that they don't really feel like this is a good compatible use. I do think there are some assurances, though, that this would look better than what you have on Exhibit B because our standards have improved so much. For architecture, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they'd have to have like a 75% masonry for this new building, something like that.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think they would be able to build what you see now in Exhibit B, but I think if you guys have questions about the aesthetics, our staff would be happy to walk through that with you and tell you about why there's a good chance that it'll look really good. But I think the applicant has still some work to do to make this overcome our question about whether it's a really compelling use.
And you made a good point, and I want to reiterate it. As far as getting information, feel free to contact the staff, and they will get you all the information you need. And if you feel like you're not getting the information, let me know. I'll get you the information you need. But they're one of the best staffs around, or the best staff around, and they will get you anything you want to know. And they usually do it within 48 hours, if not 24 hours. So they're very responsive. Mr. Smith, you have anything to add?
Nice thing about going almost last is you all got it set. I'm not going to repeat it. There's a lot of concerns, and I know we can't always deal with the appearance, but this is an end of town that's kind of our entrance in, and you can see some really nice developments out there that are ours, and now we're going to have this kind of this honky-tonk feel, and I don't like when we get that glass and that cold glass look. The size and the magnitude. So I'm not going to repeat the issues about the buffer. I'm not going to repeat all of those things. But, I'll go back to the phrase you used about the compelling use. And in my opinion, there's got to be a lot more dialogue with the applicant and the folks. And there has to be some conditions. We can't mandate conditions, but there's a lot of work to be done here, and you've heard it from all of my peers. I'm not going to repeat it.
Okay. Mr. George.
I know that in working, being up at Crossroads at the polls Tuesday, I heard from all of the Wellington people about the flooding and how they're praying for redevelopment of the service center and all that pavement that was developed way before we had the rules we've got. And I think that's what's the positive thing that I heard tonight, is that if it can make the flooding better, that's a huge plus. I also want to hear more about these dividers, because I don't understand exactly if we're going to stop left-hand turns out. I think those things need to be clearer or more clearly done, and maybe that the applicant could, in fact, if I could, I want the applicant to explain that, what they were offering on the improvements, because I didn't understand the dividers were just thrown out, or who can explain the dividers?
I think our staff can explain.
Who can explain what was proposed with the dividers? Is that to prevent left hand out of Hemlock Bluff Shopping Plaza? Is that what the dividers were to do, which is going to perhaps hurt that?
I think it's just to be in compliance with our long-range plans for the roads, which is basically a median.
A median?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, obviously the Hemlock Plaza Shopping Center enjoys access into it today, and we do everything we could to keep that access in there. But in this particular case, we're asking the improvements to be made to the roadway to bring it up to our standards for medians and restrict the access on Penny Road to right in, right out. So that's really what it means.
Okay, and that would, it said at medians, would that also then mean Kildare Farm as well?
Yes.
Okay, so both directions to be blocked for overturns. And no, those were my comments. I just wondered if there's it would be appropriate for the applicant to make any comments.
I don't think it's appropriate. Unless we have a question we need him to answer, it's not appropriate. And I think staff has answered all the questions.
I'll just add one thing about the concern about the median being put in there. I believe that once you put that median in there, then traffic on the other side of Penny Road, I guess then going westbound, would not need to stop when the school bus came by. Right now, because there's no median, all traffic has to stop there, which gives, I think, parents the feeling of a safer bus stop. But if you have the other side having free flow traffic when the school bus is stopped, I think there's a little bit more concern for safety. So there's a couple other impacts of having that median there in regard to the safety of that bus stop, in addition to the U-turn.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this will go to the Planning and Zoning Board. We don't have a date yet because it's up to the applicant to see if they're going to propose anything else. If not, it will probably be sooner than later. And if there are changes, then it will be later. So we're talking a month or two. Am I correct?
At least, yeah. Earliest would be December.
Okay. Earliest December. So please stay in touch, and again, if you have questions, let us know. We'll be glad to get the answers to your questions. Thank you, Ms. Stride. We have no discussion items this evening. However, we do have a closed session, and I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Since Lori's not here, I'll read.
We miss her.
Miss Lori. Okay, pursuant to GS 143-318.11, A1, 3, and 4, I move that we hold a closed session to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the town, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by town in negotiations, and to consult with attorneys employed by and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys in the town. Among other things, the council expects to receive advice concerning the following in regard to the appeal of Rock Row LLC and Croc LLC, to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-318.10E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We move into closed session. reconvene our meeting. We have no other items on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion. Second. And a second. And a third. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Thank you. We are adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.